Hello and welcome to Run It Back, here with myself, Gabriel Steigers.
And I'm Ryan Cartman.
We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I sure know I did. How was your turkey day, Ryan?
It was great, Gabe. Got to watch a lot of football, watch some college basketball as well.
One hell of a weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Thanksgiving football did not disappoint as the Lions scraped by against their division rival Bears by just a field goal. Following the loss, Coach Matt Eberflus was fired from his position by the Bears as they've been severely underwhelming thus far.
And no surprises as the Giants were handed a loss by the Thanksgiving Day Cowboys, who've also been very underwhelming this year.
And in the evening slot, the Packers routed the Dolphins by a score of 30-17 and continued their winning ways.
And we can't go without mentioning the Chiefs, who hosted the Raiders on Black Friday, who may not have earned that win, but they all count the same.
And yeah, Sunday action was action-packed as well, highlighted by the nightcap of the Bills versus the Niners. We'll hear more about that at the end of the show, so stay tuned for more NFL action as we draw near to the playoffs. But as for now, we've got some KU coverage coming your way next.
We've got KU football up first as the Jayhawks wrapped up a rather disappointing season in Waco with a loss to Baylor.
Meanwhile, the basketball team remained undefeated, taking care of business against Furman in Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday and defeating the Duke Blue Devils in Vegas last week. Ben will have the latest for us there.
And finally, Alex has some insight on the best of the best from KU volleyball. But first, let's go over to Jacob for some football.
Thanks, Gabe. This season has brought us a roller coaster full of emotions, but recently, KU football has been on a hot streak. They beat 3 ranked opponents in a row. Some of those teams included Iowa State, who is going to the Big 12 championship game this week, and Heisman frontrunner Travis Hunter with Colorado. The Jayhawks went into Waco, Texas this week to take on Baylor to claim bowl eligibility for the 3rd year in a row, but unfortunately, their luck ran out. After the Jayhawks missed a field goal on their first drive, Devin Neal went to work on the second drive after an 8-yard touchdown from Sevion Morrison. Neal ran it 19 yards for the first score of the game. Baylor would respond with a touchdown of their own on the following drive, plus another touchdown after Jalen Daniels throws an interception to Devin Bobby. The score at the end of the first quarter is 14-7 Baylor. KU would end up kicking a field goal in the second quarter, followed up by a Baylor touchdown, ending the first half with a score of 21-10. Baylor would end up getting the ball to start the second half, and they took advantage of it as Bryson Washington scored a 10-yard rushing touchdown on the first drive of the half. Baylor would end up scoring another touchdown before KU responded with a 14-yard end-around play by Lawrence Arnold, cutting their lead to 18. Our Jayhawks unfortunately could not mount a comeback, and we lost 45-17, a disappointing end to a roller coaster season. It's unfortunate that our seniors' last game ended in a loss, but there will be no more football until next season. The good news is that our new stadium will be finished next year, so we will be able to have a brand new game day experience at Lawrence. Now, many of us went home for Thanksgiving break, but one of our reporters, Ben, is from Vegas, and unlike a lot of us who took the week off, Ben went to work covering a big-time matchup with KU basketball, taking on another blue blood, the Duke Blue Devils.
The Jayhawks started strong, taking a commanding lead in the first half. Hunter Dickinson knocked down a three-pointer. A.J. Storr completed an and-one, and Zeke Mayo hit a three-pointer, creating back-to-back-to-back three-point scoring plays. However, that lead didn't last for too long, as Duke found their rhythm late in the first half, going on a 10-0 run and capping it off with a three-pointer at the buzzer to cut Kansas's lead down to 5. The key moment in this game occurred midway through the second half when Hunter Dickinson went up for a 2-point shot, attempted to grab the rebound, and fell on top of Duke's Malik Brown. Officials ultimately reviewed this play for about 5 minutes.
Number 1 for Kansas is ejected with a flagrant 2 technical foul.
Wow.
And decided to call a flagrant 2 foul, ejecting Dickinson from the game. This ejection removed Kansas's best player with 10 minutes and 26 seconds left in a tight 2-point game where Kansas was leading. Even without Hunter Dickinson, the Jayhawks rallied, with freshman Flory Badinga stepping up on the floor. After the game, Bill Self emphasized the team's next man up mentality, saying, "Everyone's got each other's backs." This mindset was evident as Kansas held off the Duke Blue Devils, remaining undefeated through November with 2 impressive ranked wins against UNC and now Duke.
Thanks, Ben. With KU being on that undefeated start, I might have to put a little money on them to have a deep run here in March. Earlier this week, 2 Kansas volleyball players were drafted to the Pro Volleyball Federation in the 5-round draft. Senior Toyosi Anabanjo was drafted in the first round to the Omaha Supernovas as the 8th overall pick and will join 2 former Jayhawks, Reagan Cooper and Kelsey Payne. Another perk of going to the Supernovas, they're the defending league champions. Cameron Turner was the other senior who was drafted to the PVF. She went in the 3rd round at 22nd overall to the Rise in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She will be the first Big 12 Conference volleyball player to go to the Rise. The Pro Volleyball Federation will begin its 2nd ever season on January 9th, 2025, when the San Diego Mojo travel to Orlando to take on the Valkyries. I know a few Jayhawk fans are wondering, and the answer is yes. Both Turner and Anabanjo will finish out the rest of the season with Kansas before taking off for the pros, so don't worry. Speaking of which, it was just announced yesterday that Kansas will be hosting the first round of the NCAA tournament on Friday, December 6th, when they take on Colgate. That's all the time I have today. We'll now take a short break, and then we'll be back with Gabe and Ryan to get us started on some professional sports.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Thanks for staying with us, folks. Jacob will be taking us out to Emporia, where he covered the Kansas 6A high school football championship game.
That's right. Undefeated Manhattan matched up with 11-1 Gardner Edgerton High. And I won't spoil the result, but I heard it was a thriller.
Grant will be bringing us another NBA deep dive, and Tyler will take us home talking some football.
Here's Jacob.
Thanks, Gabe, and welcome back to the final edition of high school football. I'll run it back, and thank you to everybody who tuned in this season as we just wrapped up the state championship games. Today we'll be focusing on the 6A game between defending champion Gardner Edgerton and undefeated Manhattan High School. Gardner rolled through the regular season, only losing to Mill Valley at home by a touchdown. Now in the playoffs, they destroyed Wyandotte High School and Shawnee Mission East, then having dominating fourth quarters against Blue Valley West and Blue Valley Northwest. Now, Manhattan has rolled through their competition this season as they were headed into this game undefeated at 12-0, averaging 43 points per game, with one of those teams they beat being Derby, who they beat in Sub-State, and that is no small win because Derby beat them last year and was the runner-up behind Gardner. I have been at Gardner's game for the past 4 weeks now, so I already know what I'm getting out of them. Now, Manhattan I've never seen play before, so I'm excited to see how these teams fare in a state championship game. And let me tell you, this was one of the greatest games I've seen all season. Both teams were evenly matched, and I knew it was going to come down to whoever had the ball last with the most time. Well then, Manhattan scored on the first possession as senior Carter Aslan ran to the end zone. It was basically untouched. The extra point was blocked by Gardner, making the score 6-0. Gardner then responded later in the first quarter with Braven punching it in for an easy touchdown. The score is now 7-6 Trailblazers. Now, Gardner fell behind just like in some playoff game matchups they had before, but then Manhattan came storming back, scoring back-to-back touchdowns on their ensuing drives. Both seniors Jaden Hudley and Carter Aslan rushing for touchdowns, bringing the score 19-7 Indians. Gardner then came storming back with Braven on a 4th down through a 12-yard touchdown pass to senior Lucas Wilson. Then, on their last possession before half, Gardner scored again. Braven threw a 29-yard touchdown pass to junior Porter Swain and the successful 2-point conversion run by Braven. Gardner is now up on Manhattan 22-19 headed into halftime. Then in the second half, things got really good. Manhattan came out firing, scoring first to take the lead 26-22. But then Braven, after an 80-yard drive, Trailblazers rushed it down for a 23-yard touchdown, making the lead 29-26. Then, on 4th and 2, Jaden Hudley ran for a 33-yard touchdown, with Manhattan claiming the lead again, 33-29. Now here's where things get good. Manhattan is on their own side of the field, and all they have to do is run the ball and get first down and run the clock out. Now, I know Gardner's defense is generally hard to run against, but your senior running back, Hudley, has just rushed for 178 yards at this point in the game, so you have to keep giving him the ball. But that does not happen. They get penalties, which backs them up, and now they have to pass to get the first down, and then they punt, giving Gardner a chance to score. And as always, you guys should know what happens next. Gardner marches down the field with 10 seconds left on the clock. Braven punches it in for a 1-yard touchdown. And special shout out to Braven Powell. He ran for 129 yards and rushed for 3 touchdowns and threw for 2 touchdowns. What a way to finish out your last high school game. But this game is not over yet. There are still 10 seconds left on the board, and Manhattan drove down the field. They were then left with 1 second on the board. And then they just sent a Hail Mary prayer up, which was actually caught but batted down, giving Gardner the victory over Manhattan. And let me tell you, the excitement and feeling of winning a championship and being the best team at your sport will never get old. Congratulations, Gardner, on winning your 2nd title in school history, coming off winning your 1st one just the year prior. The Trailblazers are back-to-back champions. And as for 5A and 4A, Aquinas beat Hayes 35-14, and Bishop Hayes falls to Andover Central 49-42. Also, this is the last high school football segment this year, so special thanks to everybody who helped me film and cover all these games this year. Much love to all those people. Now tossing it to some professional football with Tyler Brewer.
Thank you, Jacob, and I think I speak for everybody when I say playoff football is the best. But let's turn things over from Friday Night Lights to the Sunday Gridiron with Brewers Game of the Week. And wow, what a game we had between the Jets and the Seahawks. The Seahawks were looking to keep a firm hold on their first place spot in the NFC West, whereas the Jets were looking to keep their postseason hopes alive. And let me tell you, this game brought out the best of both teams. Starting off, we got to see the rekindling of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams on a great over-the-shoulder fade route for the first score of the game. However, the point after was blocked, keeping the score at 6-0 New York. But the action was only picking up from there, as Seahawks kick returner D. Williams looked to have a great kick return, but fumbled the ball away to the Jets, which turned into the first career touchdown of rookie Isaiah Davis' career, and after a 2-point conversion, New York had a 14-0 advantage. Unfortunately for the Jets, after this, Geno Smith woke up and started dicing up the Jets defense, putting on an absolute clinic in the pass game to get the Seahawks on the board and make the score 14-7. But the Jets weren't ready to give up hopes on their season. They wanted to put the Seahawks away, and they knew they would need a big play to try and do it. Well, in the words of popular Twitch streamer Sketch, special teams, special players, special plays. And after few plays are as special as a 99-yard kick return touchdown from Kinye Nwanu, who was making his Jets debut, and it was his 4th career kick return touchdown, and Jets fans were loving it. In fact, fans didn't have enough time to take in that kick return before yet another big play, as Laviska Shenault, the other returner for the Seahawks, muffed the kick return and fumbled it right into the hand of Jets kicker Anders Carlson, and the Jets had the ball once again up 21-7. MetLife Stadium was going crazy. Jets fans had to have been thinking there was no way they could possibly mess this up. Until they did. Look, it was 3rd and 8 from the 10-yard line when Rodgers would drop back to pass, but failed to see that Seahawks D lineman Leonard Williams was back in coverage and would intercept the pass, taking it 92 yards for a touchdown against his former team in what was the biggest play of the day in more ways than just one. But as the Jets were starting to build some momentum, the point after was blocked, keeping the score at 21-13 New York. Oh, and by the way, this was all in just the first half. And sadly for the Jets, the second half was a very different story, as once again Geno Smith was showing everyone why he and his team are the best in the NFC West. And after a gritty second half, slowly chipping away at the score, the Seahawks would get the go-ahead touchdown from Zach Charbonnet. Rodgers and company would get the ball back down 26-21 with a little over 5 minutes to play. All hope was alive as we saw glimpses of prime MVP Aaron Rodgers as he and the Jets were marching down the field. However, the drive would face a major setback on 3rd and 10 as it was none other than Leonard Williams picking up a huge sack to force 4th and forever. And as the Jets looked to keep any hopes of postseason play alive, Rodgers would unleash a prayer to the end zone like we've seen time after time in the past. But sadly, the Rodgers magic has run dry. The ball sailed over the head of Garrett Wilson and the Seahawks would win in an absolute thriller. But hey, speaking of thrillers, I'm pretty sure this NBA in-season tournament has been very interesting so far. For more on that, I'll swing it over to Grant Shear. Take it away, Grant.
Thanks for that rundown, Tyler. What an exciting Sunday slate. Nothing's better than some Thanksgiving football. It's always so fun to see both sides compete to win. Most of the time, winning comes with celebrations, highlight plays, and congratulations. But what if I told you could win all of that and upwards of $500,000 just by winning? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Grant Shear, and for this week's NBA Deep Dive, let's take a closer look into the NBA's midseason tournament, the NBA Cup. The NBA Cup is one of the most recent additions in the NBA, with the addition of the Cup starting in the 2023 to 2024 season. saw the Cup for the first time in Las Vegas, and it seems to have found its home there as the 2025 season tournament also takes place there. Before we get too far, let's look at what the NBA Cup is all about. To start off, the NBA had a problem. The NBA felt as if some NBA superstars weren't treating the regular season as serious as it should. Star players would take games off because they felt like it, and the NBA didn't like that. They created a mid-season tournament that would crown a champion and give that team a championship after winning. Alongside a championship, players on the winning team could receive a cash incentive up to $500,000. This now gave the players more of a reason to play and play to win. Now, you might be wondering, is this just a certain group of teams? Are they random teams? Are they the best 5 teams chosen? No. Not just one group of teams, it is all of the teams. All 30 NBA teams, 29 from the US and 1 from Canada, shout out Raptors, compete for the tournament. The divisions are split between the East and the West. Each conference has 3 separate groups inside of it. They are labeled West Group A, B, and C. Each group has 5 teams in it. For example, East Group B consists of the Pistons, Bucks, Heat, Raptors, and the Pacers. The Cup games start off with round-robin group play, and then they go into tournament play. 1-game elimination decides a mid-season champion. Last season, we saw the Los Angeles Lakers take home their first ever mid-season championship. It'll be more than interesting to see who comes out victorious in this season's Cup. So far this season, we have seen multiple teams already clinch their brackets. These teams include the Hawks, the Rockets, and the Warriors. I don't know about you, but I am pumped to see which teams will win and those that will fall short. But unfortunately, I am out of time in this week's NBA Deep Dive. After the break, Gabe and Ryan will preview the College Basketball Holiday Tournament.
Welcome back, everyone. College basketball, Jude's Fantasy 5, a play breakdown, and some more college football are all next.
Ryan and I will be right back with you on the back end to close it out.
Here's Emmett with latest on college hoops holiday tournaments.
Thanks, guys. Usually Thanksgiving for sports is all about those Thanksgiving Day football games, but you can't forget about the electric college basketball tournaments that go on during Feast Week. This week was a very exciting week for college basketball. There were a ton of upsets, and in fact, 60% of the top 25 teams lost, and a few of those even lost multiple times. There's one team in particular, however, that I think we are thinking about and fits perfectly on this list, and that is the back-to-back national champion UConn Huskies. The number 2 ranked team in the country played in the Maui Invitational this past week and went 0-3, losing to all unranked teams. This hasn't happened since 1983. It started Monday when Memphis, led by Tyrese Hunter, would go off for 26 points, including 7 threes to shock UConn in an overtime thriller. What stood out more to me than Hunter's game, however, was UConn's head coach Dan Hurley. Hurley received a technical foul late in the game, and you could see he was upset with everyone on the floor. His temper was clearly shown, and it carried over into the loss against Colorado, as he was fired up by a call late in that game too. And to add on to his weekend, you can see him hopeless as he has no idea what is going on in a loss to Dayton that sent them home winless. This weekend for UConn is shocking, and even more shocking to see Hurley's interesting actions. However, it isn't completely surprising, as he is known to be a fierce coach with very intense practices. And as I see UConn struggling, I'm starting to believe that this type of coaching doesn't always work. Whatever it is that is going on, these Huskies have some work to do, as I'm not sure they will even be ranked when the new AP poll comes out. Dan Hurley has as much work to do personally as his team does, and they'll have to figure it out sooner than later if they want to make a deep run in March like they have the past couple of years. Anyways, on a completely different note, I've been struggling in fantasy lately. What advice do you have for me, Jude?
Thanks, Emmett. I know I've had a great time watching all the games over break, but John Fanta's Cincinnati Xavier analysis might have been my favorite. Welcome back to Fantasy 5. Today we have a special segment, as we will be taking a look at the top 5 fantasy scoring performances in history. Full PPR, of course. Starting off at number 5, with the most recent game on this list, we've got Jamal Charles in 2013. During a high-scoring matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Oakland Raiders, Charles took over, scoring 59.5 fantasy points. He found the end zone 5 times, catching 4 touchdowns and running for 1. Charles was inefficient as a rusher, averaging 2.5 yards per carry, but he made up for it with his work as a receiver. Charles caught 8 passes from quarterback Alex Smith, taking them for a total of 195 yards and 4 touchdowns. In 4th place, we have Jerry Butler. The Buffalo Bills selected the wide receiver with the 5th overall selection of the 1979 draft, and in the 4th week of his rookie season, he had a career game. Butler amassed 267 yards and caught 4 touchdowns on 11 touches. Butler ended his day with 60.7 fantasy points and a win over the division rival New York Jets. The 3rd highest scoring fantasy performance comes from the greatest wide receiver of all time, Jerry Rice. The 49ers took on the Vikings in a Monday Night Football shootout that concluded with a final score of San Francisco 37, Minnesota 30. With Steve Young under center, Jerry Rice scored 61.9 points, hauling in 14 of 16 targets, totaling 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rice committed a rare fumble in this game, and the 2 points lost is worth more than the separation between him and second place, which is held by 5-time Pro Bowler Jimmy Smith. In 2000, when Smith was a member of the Jaguars, he had the best game of his career, scoring 62.1 fantasy points. Smith caught 15 passes for 291 yards and 3 touchdowns, but what makes this performance truly special was his opponent. The Baltimore Ravens went on to win the Super Bowl, and this team was remembered for their defense. They were led by first ballot Hall of Famers Ray Lewis and Rod Woodson, and the 2000s Ravens defense is regarded as one of the best ever, making Smith's afternoon of dominance that much more impressive. The highest scoring fantasy performance of all time belongs to none other than Jerry Rice. During Week 6 of his final season as the 49ers starting quarterback, Joe Montana connected with Jerry Rice for 13 receptions, 225 yards, and 5 touchdowns. 65.5 fantasy points is a full 3 points higher than second place and an absurd showing from the undisputed greatest wide receiver to ever touch the field. Now, I can't leave the segment without mentioning wide receiver Billy Cannon, who once scored 68 points, but he had to be left off this list as the game took place before the NFL-AFL merger. Now, I have to ask, Olivier, did your team score more than 68 this week?
Thanks, Jude. Unfortunately, I'm cruising toward another fantasy punishment, but at least I'm a Chiefs fan, and Travis Kelce had another crazy highlight this week. We're seeing more downfield laterals across the league, but Travis Kelce's been making these plays for years. On Black Friday, the Chiefs used a lateral to convert a big 3rd down. Now, Chiefs fans know that Kelce's already thrown laterals to running back Samaje Perine this year. Sometimes a lateral is part of the play design. Sometimes it's just a rogue decision from a player. On this play, it's exactly how the Chiefs drew it up. Here, the Raiders are playing zone defending the sticks. Kelce and Perine both start by chipping the defensive ends to help out the Chiefs' struggling tackles, which gives Mahomes some time to see if anything's coming open down the field. But nothing's there, and there are only 2 defenders left to cover the zones short of the sticks. You see Kelce crosses the field here to put him and Perine in one-man zone. Running multiple routes into the same space usually isn't great play design because you aren't forcing the defense to spread out as much. But when you throw a lateral, you can take advantage of the defense trying to cover 2 receivers with 1 defender. Here, the Chiefs are just playing monkey in the middle with this guy. Now, Kelce's been doing this for years, but last night he was outdone by Josh Allen. The Bills spent most of last night's game running the ball in between the tackles with extra linemen. But on this play, they gave their best receiver, Amari Cooper, a chance to break a tackle isolated to the short side of the field. Now, Josh Allen admitted after the game, he made a bad throw here. Cooper does a great job to catch the ball behind him, but he's got no chance to get in the end zone on his own. You can see multiple 49ers defenders rally to the ball here because that's what good defenses do. They gang tackle. Laterals can punish defenses for mobbing ball carriers like this. Here comes Josh Allen, who doesn't quit on the play. And last night in the snow, it was especially hard to change direction quickly, so Josh Allen was able to use his running start to get into the end zone. It takes amazing awareness from Cooper and Allen to pull this play off unplanned. Overall, I think we're seeing the best teams in the league are confident they can execute these plays without fumbling. So as offenses evolve to punish smarter defenses, I'd expect more teams are going to try to take advantage of these plays. Next, we'll head over to our college football roundtable with Case and Tyler.
Thanks, Olivier. I'm here with Tyler, and we're going to be talking about some college football rivalries that happened this weekend. A lot of good games, Tyler, that happened. A lot of close ones, and some that are unexpected. And speaking of unexpected games, we're going to go right in. We're going to go with Georgia Tech and Georgia. Huge game out of Hayes King. I honestly cannot believe it was that close. He looked incredible. Even though they lost in an 8 overtime game, just the way he was able to run that ball and even just shred up that Georgia defense, who's known for having a strong defensive presence on the D-line and their corners. I think that was one of the most impressive games I've watched.
Yeah, I mean, putting up over 300 yards in the air and then over 100 on the ground, that's a great effort, trying to knock down the number 7 team in the country. He left it all on the field. Sadly, he also left the football on the field with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter when they were trying to ice the game, and that's what led to Georgia being able to tie the game up, force overtime, and 8 overtimes later, like you said, Case, they get the win. But he really did outperform Carson Beck, which kind of raises questions for me on why can't Georgia get a great quarterback. Carson Beck clearly has not been the answer this season, so that's going to be something fun to see in the offseason. But speaking of teams with great quarterbacks coming in next season, Michigan takes down Ohio State in a rivalry game, beat Ohio State for the 4th straight year at Ohio State. What's our takeaways from that one?
I think this game just comes down to Ryan Day in general. You cannot lose to that team. They barely have a quarterback in Davis Warren, and he had 66 yards pretty much and 2 interceptions coming in, and they ran the ball down Ohio State's throat. And everyone in that was watching that game on air knew that their entire offense is just running the ball with Donovan Edwards, and so you have to stop that run, and the fact that they were not able to prepare for that, I thought Will Howard, even though he's from K-State and I like to hate on him, he looked terrible, okay? Throwing 2 interceptions in the red zone, like, that just cannot happen.
Yeah, and hey, Ohio State may not have been able to stop the run, but they sure tried to stop Michigan from planting the flag at the end of the game. Led to a huge all-out brawl. Some Michigan players got pepper sprayed.
Absolutely.
I saw in the news today that both schools were fined $100,000, which is that's pretty crazy fines coming from the NCAA, but those 2 athletic departments can probably afford it.
Yeah, it's bad, and you mentioned that, and just the fact that the police had to come on and pepper spray people to get off the field. There were players getting escorted. Arrests were probably happening in the back, but we're going to move on to another rivalry game. We got a Texas showdown with Texas and Texas A&M. I thought this game the score was 17-7. I thought it was a lot bigger than that. Texas, to me, just looked like the bigger team, the better team. A&M overall they did not have a passing game. Their quarterback just had to run up the middle every time, and that Texas just looked bigger to me. That O-line was getting shut out by the defense.
This was definitely a Texas A&M team that was reminiscent of the start of the year when they played Notre Dame and couldn't really get anything going. It's just unfortunate because they're trying to make an SEC championship. They're trying to keep their postseason hopes alive, get the best bowl game they possibly can, and Texas just gave them nothing for free.
Yeah, and I think whenever you look at, the only points that Texas A&M scored was off of a pick 6 from Quinn Ewers in the red zone, and you cannot have that offensive production and expect to win. I expected more from Texas A&M. I'll say that. You're going into Kyle Field, arguably being the best home field advantage in college football, and to score 7 without 0 offensive points is just terrible.
Yeah. Hey, we talked about both SEC teams that are going to be in the championship, Georgia and Texas. Who do you think wins the SEC championship real quick before we toss it?
I think it's Texas. I think they're strong. I like their quarterback. I think their depth is a lot better. And I think Georgia right now, for me, has a lot of questions, especially coming off that Georgia Tech game where they allowed that many points. And Carson Beck just has looked inconsistent. So
that's fair. Georgia did beat Texas, though, the time they played earlier this season.
That's
going to be a fun game to watch in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to go ahead and send it over to Gabe and Ryan. What do you guys think of the college football games?
Thanks, Case. College football is definitely heating up. But Ryan, do you know what time it is?
Not sure, man. You'll have to remind me.
Well, it's time for Gabe's Play of the Week. I wonder who made that graphic. That's a good one. Well, that's right. I would have loved to talk about the Amari Cooper lateral, but Olivier had that covered. But this deflection from second-year backer Demarion Overshown off the edge, gets off his block. He's positioned perfectly for that pick 6 to give the Cowboys a lead. Just unbelievable. I love it. You know, you get a guy that doesn't get the spotlight too much with Micah Parsons on the same team and everything. And just made me giddy. And it was on Thanksgiving. Hey, it was great.
Guess who had the Cowboys defense fantasy this week, man? Come on, 18 fantasy points? We like that.
That's what I'm talking about. I had the Bucks D in one of my leagues.
You had the Bucks D?
2 points, 1 point.
I was going to say Bryce Young, man. Hey, look at the Panthers. They almost had it. Almost.
All right.
Well, don't think those fantasy games. Hopefully we got some more good fantasy football coming up. But that's all we got for you folks. Once again, we hope you had a great week, and we hope you stay tuned for Playmakers and Good Morning KU Sports coming up next Friday morning.
Big thank you from all of us here in the studio. Again, we hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.